Let me dive into the latest in the Ukraine story and also give you some background on where Republicans stand with impeachment and why this really does matter. I want to begin with audio from Dana Bash on CNN talking about what Republicans are hearing.
What I'm hearing tonight from Republicans who have the most to lose, Republicans who are up for re-election in 2020 on the Hill. Obviously, that's all Republicans in the House, but also in purple states in the Senate. And even they are saying to me that their constituents, they believe, see this as too complicated. And there's a Russia hangover here, that they are hearing from their constituents that there was a shoulder shrug after, as Mark said, millions of dollars were spent, a year and a half of discussion about Russia, right. And their constituents didn't think it was a big deal, and they see what is going on now is akin to that, and they think that right. They have political protection.
Well, yeah, and they do. I think Dana is absolutely right here. Republicans right now tell me basically the same thing, that nobody really gets the story yet. It hasn't resonated. It's too new. People are really used to the media now walking back and changing stories and adding to stories in ways that contradict earlier parts of the stories. This is taking on a life of its own, though, in two regards, one related to Donald Trump and one related to Joe Biden. And to understand this, you need to understand my prevailing sentiment on the race between Biden and Trump. This is Biden's race to lose on the Democratic side, and this story may actually sink him. He and Trump are joined at the hip. As Donald Trump's polling rises, so too does Joe Biden's. And the reason is because as Trump looks stronger and harder to beat, Joe Biden becomes the safe bet for the Democrats. And as Trump's polling goes down, Joe Biden's polling goes down, because as Trump's polling shows that he's very beatable, then the Democrats are thinking, why not go big instead of going for the safe bet? We can be a little more risky. We can play the risk. We can get a better, more progressive candidate. At the same time, the media has been trying to make Elizabeth Warren happen. The media genuinely has been trying to make Elizabeth Warren happen for as long as she's been around on the public stage. When she was the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Division, they were already talking about her running for president. The media wants Elizabeth Warren to be president, and they will use this. They will turn this on, and they will take out Joe Biden with this story because they think this story hurts Joe Biden. And in fact, you're starting to hear that. Couple clips of audio. This is from Representative Gonzalez in Congress about Joe Biden.
He says never. And then the New Yorker piece from this summer in July quotes Hunter Biden as saying, saying his father, and he did discuss that company, and said, Dad said, quote, I hope you know what you're doing. I said, I do. Does it raise any questions for you?
Well, clearly something needs to be cleared up at this point, right? So, yes, of course, I would want an explanation on that. And I hold whoever I support and responsible, regardless what party they're in. I think we should be Americans first and take care of our country and take care of certainly of our secrets and the integrity of this institution.
Yeah. The slow walk that Republicans are doing on Trump is the slow walk that Democrats are doing on Biden. Now, right now, you've got Mitch McConnell saying, no way, no how, nothing's going to happen.
It is regrettable that House Intelligence Committee Chairman Schiff and Senator Schumer have chosen to politicize the issue, circumventing the established procedures and protocols that exist so that committees can pursue sensitive matters in the appropriate, deliberate, bipartisan manner. Although we don't know the substance of the allegations, there is speculation that it relates to our relationship with Ukraine. For my part, Mr. President, as I stated earlier this month, I was very glad to see the White House release security assistance funds for Ukraine. I championed U.S. security assistance to Ukraine over the objections of the Obama administration in 2014. I've consistently believed in the importance of helping our Ukrainian partners defend their territory against Russian aggression. In fact, I had been personally pressing them to release security assistance funding for several months to ensure the United States did not walk back our important commitments to Ukraine. On 2 occasions, I raised the need to keep our commitment to Ukraine with the Secretary of Defense, expressing my interest in seeing this money be released to help our Ukrainian partners. I raised it with the Secretary of State. My staff also engaged senior officials at the Pentagon, at the State Department, at the National Security Council, and at the Office of Management and Budget.
This is very interesting audio from Mitch McConnell because he's conceding that the Trump administration was withholding money from Ukraine. And this comes on the heels of an overnight story from the New York Times and the Washington Post, where McConnell clearly knew the story was coming. He made the statement yesterday. He clearly knew that this story was coming because both the New York Times and Washington Post are separately reporting that shortly before the president had his phone call with the Ukrainian president, where he raised Joe Biden 8 times, he ordered the United States government to not distribute funds to Ukraine that were badly needed to combat the Russian situation. Let me say that again. This is important. Shortly before, about a week before, if we want to be precise, 7 days before the president had his scheduled conversation with the Ukrainian president, he ordered the U.S. government to not give Ukraine money that had been budgeted to help them combat the Russian situation. Money Congress had appropriated, the president told the Pentagon not to give them. They only gave Ukraine the money as the budget appropriations process began to renew and they were going to lose the money, but also because Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois threatened to hold the entire Pentagon budget until the money was released. No one really thought of it at the time, but now Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut, says that the Ukrainian president took this as a threat, that the Ukrainian president did suspect that this was in relation to the president's conversation with him on Joe Biden. Now, Chris Murphy, of course, is a dishonest political hack, so we can't really believe him, but the timing is coincidental. And the New York Times and the Washington Post asked various members of the administration why, and they got various different answers. And that's the important part here, is they got various different answers. Nobody was on the same page. Some said the president wanted more investigation into the Russian situation. Some said it was because of corruption. No one really knew, including John Bolton, who argued, we're told, pretty passionately that the president needed to give Ukraine the money and the president withheld it. And John Bolton couldn't figure out why the president was withholding the money. Where John Bolton is in this story is important. But we also have the president talking about the Ukrainian situation. Let me give you 2 pieces here.
So Joe Biden was very dishonest. Now, when you see the call, if you see it, I hope you see it, frankly, you will find out that I did not do that at all. And you'll be very disappointed when you see it. It's really a disgrace. It really is a situation where it just shows the press you've had such a bad week between Justice Kavanaugh and this and other things. It's showing how dishonest so many members of the press are, not all of you, but so many members of the press are so totally dishonest. But this is a case, I hope you get to see the call, because your question, you will see, I did not ask for, I did not make a statement that you have to do this or I'm not going to give you aid. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. With that being said, what I want is, we're giving a lot of money away to Ukraine and other places. You want to see a country that's going to be not corrupt. The president is a good man. He got elected on the fact that he was going to get rid of corruption in Ukraine. That's, I think, the primary reason he got elected. So he gets elected on the basis of ending corruption in Ukraine. Well, I think that's good, and that's what I want to see. But when Biden does a thing like that, then there's still corruption, and that's not good.
Correct. And notice he keeps weaving Biden back into this. Here's a little more.
Well, you're going to see, because what we are doing is we want honesty. And if we deal with a country, we want honesty. And I think with the new president, you're going to see much more honesty in the Ukraine. And that's what we're looking for. We're supporting a country. We want to make sure that country is honest. It's very important to talk about corruption. If you don't talk about corruption, why would you give money to a country that you think is corrupt? One of the reasons the new president got elected is he was going to stop corruption. So it's very important that on occasion you speak to somebody about corruption. Very important.
Notice how he's turning this all into corruption. Very interested in corruption. This seems to be where the White House is headed with this, that the president's saying it's all about corruption. Here's what I think is going to happen for the Democrats to be able to successfully litigate this against the president. And you should know there's a congressional recess, 2-week congressional recess. These people may very well go back to their districts and have a bunch of activists, and I suspect that's what's going to happen in progressive communities and in swing districts. You're going to have a bunch of progressive activists pour in and demand impeachment. And so these swing swing district Democrats are going to come back thinking they've heard from their community when, in fact, they've heard from progressive activists demanding impeachment. You're having here in Georgia, Carolyn Bordeaux, who is running for Rob Woodall's seat in Georgia 7. She is now on the impeachment bandwagon. Lucy McBath has not come out yet, but I suspect she's going to come out as well with a saying we need to inquire about Joe Biden and impeachment. All of this will advance. The Democrats, it looks like they are taking the brakes off the impeachment train now. They've been trying forever, and this will be the Republican counterspin. The Democrats have been trying every which way to impeach the president, and this is it. The danger for Republicans is you never know where this was going to go. You begin to have an inquiry. You begin to have an investigation. Certainly Joe Biden gets thrown under the bus because Joe Biden definitely played a role in dealing with the Ukraine matter.
That is, I'm desperately concerned about the backsliding on the part of Kyiv in terms of corruption. They made, I'll give you one concrete example. I was, not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
That was Joe Biden himself talking about how he pressured the Ukrainians to fire the prosecutor. He gave them 6 hours to fire the prosecutor. And they fired the prosecutor after Joe Biden told them to. This is going to come back and haunt Joe Biden because of his son's ties and because of what his son did behind his back, because of his brother getting loans from Ukrainian oligarch, his son sitting on the board of a company that paid him a lot of money to sit on the board in Ukraine. This is all going to come back to Joe Biden. The Democrats will throw him under the bus. They have to stop the water being muddied about Donald Trump. They have to do that because as long as Joe Biden is around as a candidate, he muddies the water in the case against Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a plausible path to say, I was looking into corruption. I was looking into what Joe Biden and his son did. It gives him defense. This hurts Joe Biden as much as it hurts Donald Trump. Now, the Republican response thus far has been behind the scenes much more troubling than in public. In public, there's solidarity with the president on this issue. Behind the scenes, they're thinking there may be a there. Why? Because they've all had encounters with Donald Trump where Donald Trump has suggested doing things like this situation, what is alleged in this situation. And they're thinking this is entirely plausible behavior by the president of the United States. They see the writing on the wall coming in 2020. What they're looking for is polling that suggests this will hurt them. Right now, Republicans believe their grasp on the Senate is firm. They believe they're not going to take back the House of Representatives, and they believe they have an iffy shot at holding on to the White House. If suddenly it looks like they have no shot at holding on to the White House and the Senate is in jeopardy, and maybe some state legislatures are in jeopardy, you're going to see the Republicans turn very, very fast on the president. Yes, it is a political calculation. Everything about impeachment is a political calculation. Don't be shocked that there's gambling in this institution. Yes, of course. It's a political institution. They're making a political calculation. And the political calculation right now is that they have no reason to pressure the president. When the polling changes, the Republicans will change.